The old farmhouse wasn't a gift. It was a curse we just hadn't unwrapped yet. When my brother Noah and I inherited it from a great-aunt we never even knew, we thought we'd hit the jackpot. A fresh start. The two of us against the world, fixing up this old place, maybe selling it. It stood alone on this huge, fog-drenched piece of land, miles from anywhere. It looked like it had been pulled right out of a ghost story. Turns out, it was. From the very first night, the house felt wrong. It wasn't just the creaks and groans of old wood settling. It was intentional. We'd hear footsteps in the hallway when we were both sitting in the living room. Whispers, like static on a radio, would bleed from the walls, too quiet to make out the words, but the malice was crystal clear. I'm Liam, the older one. I tried to be the pragmatic one, the voice of reason. I told Noah it was just old pipes, the wind whistling through gaps in the window frames. Standard old house stuff. But Noah, he wasn't buying it. He felt it more than I did, a constant, chilling sensation of being watched. He started seeing things. A figure, he said. Tall, gaunt, with eyes like empty sockets, always just at the edge of his vision. When he'd turned to look, it was gone. I told him it was stress, his imagination running wild in this creepy old place. I wanted to believe it myself. But then things happened that even I couldn't explain away. We were in the middle of a heated argument about the house, about whether we should just cut our losses and leave. Noah was getting frantic, and I was getting frustrated. Suddenly, the massive oak door to the study, a door that took both of us to move, slammed shut with the force of a cannon blast. The old iron lock clicked into place. We were trapped. For a solid hour, we pushed, we yelled, we threw our shoulders against it, but it wouldn't budge. Then, just as suddenly as it closed, the lock clicked open, and the door swung inward on its own. The hallway outside was empty, silent. Another night, we came downstairs to find a box of our childhood photos strewn across the living room floor. We'd stored that box deep in the attic, buried under a pile of old blankets. Now the photos were arranged in a perfect spiral. And in the very center, where the spiral ended, was a single faded Polaroid. It wasn't one of ours. It showed two little boys, maybe 6 or 7 years old, standing in front of this very house. But their faces had been furiously scratched out with a sharp object, leaving nothing but jagged white wounds on the glossy paper. That was it for me. The denial shattered. This wasn't old pipes. This wasn't the wind. Something was in this house with us. Something that knew us. Driven by a cold dread I'd never felt before, I tore the attic apart. Behind a loose wall panel, I found them, a stack of leather-bound journals. They belonged to our great-aunt, the one who left us the house. Her handwriting was neat at first, documenting her move, her hopes for the quiet life. But then the tone shifted. She wasn't just writing about the house. She was writing about its history. The house, she wrote, was once home to 2 brothers, Silas and Thomas. They had lived here over a century ago. As I read on, the journals became a frantic, terrifying dialogue of paranoia and fear. She had found their diaries, too. Thomas wrote about his brother Silas, about his growing obsession with something he called the voice in the walls. Silas was talking to it, listening to it. Then I found Silas's entries. He wrote that his brother Thomas was becoming violent, unpredictable. That the house had, in his words, poisoned his mind. The entries got shorter, more panicked. And then the final entry from Silas, a single chilling sentence that made my blood run cold. I had to stop him. I flipped to the last page of my great-aunt's journal. It wasn't a story anymore. It was a warning, written in a shaky, desperate scrawl, addressed to no one and everyone. It doesn't just haunt, she wrote. It divides. It will turn you against each other. As those words echoed in the dead silence of the attic, a scream ripped through the house from downstairs. A scream filled with pure terror. It was Noah. I scrambled down the ladder and found him in the kitchen, flattened against the far wall, his face a white mask of horror. He was staring at the plaster wall opposite him. I followed his gaze. There, gouged into the wall as if by giant claws, were two words, "Get out." "He was here," Noah whispered, his voice trembling so hard he could barely speak. "He was right here." He told me you let him in. Something inside me snapped. The pragmatist was gone, replaced by a terrified believer. All I could think about was my great-aunt's warning. It divides. The entity wasn't just trying to scare us. It was trying to break us apart. I became obsessed, poring over the journals, searching online for local history, anything that could tell me how to fight this thing. I had to protect my brother. But the more I tried to fight it, the more Noah slipped away. The weeks of torment had shattered him. He retreated into this hostile, paranoid shell. He started accusing me of faking things. The writing on the wall? I must have done it to scare him. The slamming door? A trick. He convinced himself it was all an elaborate scheme to drive him mad so I could claim the whole property for myself. The idea was insane, but the house was feeding it to him. The whispers changed. They weren't just random, malevolent noises anymore. They were targeted. I'd be in the workshop, and I'd hear a voice that sounded exactly like our dad, who passed away years ago. It would whisper that Noah was unstable, a danger, that I needed to be careful. At the same time, Noah would hear our mother's voice, weeping, telling him that I was going to hurt him, that I was jealous of him. The spirit was using our deepest loves and fears as weapons, twisting our memories into poison. The bond Noah and I had shared our entire lives was cracking, splintering under the pressure. We went from brothers against a ghost to two strangers living in a prison, each seeing the other as the monster. I was running out of time. I knew it. The house was winning. In a final desperate search, I went down into the damp, stone-walled cellar. Tapping along the walls, my knuckles raw, I found it. A section of the wall that sounded hollow. It was bricked over, but the outline of a doorway was unmistakable. This had to be it. The heart of the evil. The source. I didn't even tell Noah. What was the point? He just accused me of putting on another show. I grabbed a sledgehammer and spent the better part of the day smashing through the bricks and mortar. Dust filled the air, choking me, but I didn't stop. Finally, the last brick crumbled, revealing a black, gaping hole. Inside was a small, dirt-floored room. It was completely empty, except for a single child-sized wooden chair turned to face the corner, as if someone had been put there for a timeout 100 years ago and never left. I took a hesitant step inside, my flashlight beam cutting through the ancient darkness. And in that instant, the heavy iron door I had just spent hours breaking through slammed shut behind me. The sound was deafening, final. The light from the cellar was gone. I was plunged into absolute, suffocating darkness. I was trapped. Upstairs, Noah heard the slam. He told me later that for a split second, a flicker of concern crossed his face. Just a flicker. But then, a soft whisper coiled right in his ear, as intimate as a lover's secret. "He's leaving you," it said. Just like everyone else, that was it, the final push. Consumed by paranoia, convinced I had finally abandoned him, Noah started packing a bag. His only thought was to escape me, his monstrous brother. He grabbed his bag, ran to the front door, and wrenched the handle. It wouldn't turn. It was locked. From the outside. He ran to the windows, one by one, throwing his weight against them. The glass wouldn't even crack. It was as if they were made of steel. The house was sealed. Every door, every window. He was trapped. Trapped with what he now believed was the real threat. Not some ghost. Me? Down in that lightless, airless tomb, I started pounding on the door. My yells for Noah turned into frantic, desperate screams. I hammered and kicked, my voice growing hoarse. But to Noah, listening from the top of the cellar stairs, it didn't sound like a plea for help. Fueled by the whispers and his own terror, my frantic pounding started to sound different. It sounded like the determined, rhythmic breaking of a siege, like something trying to get out, to get to him. And in the oppressive, suffocating silence of the house, a low chuckle seemed to uncoil from the very walls themselves. It was a sound of pure satisfaction, the sound of a predator savoring the final act of a tragedy it had staged so many times before. The house didn't need to kill us. It just needed to make us do it for them. My brother was trapped upstairs, and I was trapped down here, and the only thing between us was a door. I don't know who was screaming louder by the end, him or me. Thank you so much for watching. This kind of story really gets under your skin, doesn't it? If you enjoyed this journey into the dark, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. I'll see you in the next one.